Tantor Audio, a division of Recorded Books, presents The Book of X by Sarah Rose Etter, narrated by Chloe Cannon. Are you living in hell? Well, try to make the most of it. Carol Rama. Part 1. I was born a knot like my mother and her mother before her. Picture 3 women with their torsos twisted like thick pieces of rope with a single hitch in the center. The doctors had the same reaction each birth. They lifted our slick, warped bodies into the air and stared, horrified. All 3 of us wailed, strange new animals, our lineage gnarled, aching, hardened. Outside, beyond the bright white lights of the hospital, the machine of the world kept grinding on. A metal mouth baring its teeth, a maw waiting to clench down on us. I'm not religious, but I damn well prayed, my mother says, exhaling smoke over the kitchen table. I rubbed the rosaries raw that you would take after your father. My mother's knot rests against the kitchen table. In my tender moments, I want to reach out and place a hand there. But as soon as you crowned, I knew it. My mother says, I could feel your knot. When my mother tells this story, I take long sips of my lemonade to keep quiet. I know she screamed the whole birth. I brought her the same pain she brought her mother. Your father says I went possessed. My eyes rolled back into my head. There are 4,500 different types of knots. There are 3,800 basic variations of these knots. There are an infinite number of ways to combine these knots and their variations. In this way, knots are like stars. We could have been complicated. Figure eights, clove hitches, sheet bends, reefs, heaving lines. But our knots are simple, overhand. Our abdomens twist in and out just once, our bodies wrapping back into themselves, creating dark caverns, coiled as snakes. In old black and white photos, my young mother poses next to my grandmother. Both conceal their knots beneath billowing blouses, standing stiffly on a gray lawn, their gray lips strained into gray smiles over gray teeth. The acres were passed down to my father from his father and his father before him. A small black sign with white paint says the acres, where our land begins. We have an old white house and a rust-red barn. Our white house is all wooden floors, arched windows, linens to wash. Our barn is where the sleeping machines are kept. The rest of the town stands a few miles back from us in our land. We are isolated in this way. Some days only my family can see me, which is my freedom. No new stares, no new disgust. The acres are worth money, is what my parents say. Here is why. At the edge of our land is the meat quarry. There, meat is harvested from the tall walls of a red, fleshy canyon. My mother and I keep the home on weekends. My mother is like weather in that she changes daily. Each day I make a report of her. Today my mother is focused and sharp, training me to clean. Everything must be white, pristine, diamond. Specks of dirt taunt her. A bucket of lemons rests at my feet. To keep a home, one must have hands and skin of citrus. Now do it how I do it, she says. You're old enough for a knife now. I have seen it, her back hunched over the sink, the brown of her hair glinting in the sunlight, the fat of her upper arms warbling, the sawing, then the halves between her fingers, yellow half-moons in her palms, rubbing lemon over white wall. I hunch over the silver gut of the sink. I cut the lemons down the center, one by one, arms shivering against the knife, separating the small, citrine hearts. I run the yellow halves over the white walls until they glisten, until the house tangs with the flesh of the fruit, until the juice of the citrus runs into the gutters of my gnawed nail beds, then stings. Each day my father and brother pull meat from the quarry to sell in town like my father's father and his father before him. Their bodies disappear over the green grass of the acres. their figures swallowed by the thin mouth of the long horizon. I have never seen the meat quarry, so I must invent it over and over again in my mind. Giant red walls of flesh marbled with the electric white of fat. "You're not meant to be there," my father says. "Some things a woman should not see." Has my mother seen it? I do not know. "Does the meat glisten and glitter?" "Enough. You keep far from there," my father says. "It's not safe." He drinks his liquor after dinner, eyes going red. My mother's fury hangs at the edge of the table, growing with each sip he takes. "Haven't you had enough?" she asks. "What does the quarry smell like?" I ask. "Enough again," he says sharply. "Both of you. Drop it." My mother sits next to me on wicker porch furniture. We have finished our cleaning for the day. Now it is magazine time. My mother's magazines are bright portals to new worlds. Women wear fantastic clothing, their faces dazzling up from the pages. My mother reads me the new tips. "This season, women need whiter teeth." I look at her teeth. They're yellowing from years of smoke. "Another trend is plastic fingernails. Now would you look at these?" On the page in her lap, a pair of slender hands holds a glass of soda with a straw. The hands have long, bright red nails, shining, luscious, more perfect than anything I have seen before. I look at her hands, their nails, which are short, unpainted, best for working lemon against wall. The sun begins its fat drop into the horizon. A thin sadness leaks from my heart for her. "One day, we'll have white teeth and red nails too," I say. Then I invent us like that in my mind, our teeth gleaming, our nails red. I picture us beautiful, unknotted. Later, in my bedroom, I shed my clothes and take inventory of my body in the long mirror. I am thin at the arms and legs, wiry brown hair down to my shoulders. My eyes are brown, flat. My jaw is large, my ears too big. My breasts are small, and there is a bit of flatness before it begins. Just below my ribs, the skin changes. My knot is strained and stretch-marked, shining and hard. I used to gasp when I saw it, but now it is my familiar. I have seen my mother's, too, when she is changing through the crack in the door. Her breasts sag over her knot. We are different in that way. The cool air pushes in through the window and runs over that secret skin. A relief in that touch. At times, I imagine it all different. Bright visions rush over me, scenes from a golden life in another world. Vision. Alone, I shed my clothes and take inventory of my body in the long mirror. I am thin at the arms and legs, brown hair down to my shoulders, bright eyes. I have small breasts, and just below my ribs, my stomach is flat. I run my hands over my belly, skin smooth as a stone from a river. The cool air pushes in through the window and runs over my skin. A pleasure in that touch. I dig through my mother's old magazines in the attic. I flip through the old trends, admire the smooth women. Tips are written in bold fonts. Yellow is the color of the season. Eat less now with the rock diet. New nails, new teeth, new life. In the stack, I find an old science magazine. My eyes stutter over the cover. My mother is younger, holding me in her arms. The title says, "Third Girl Born Knotted." Inside there are pictures of my small body slick with blood and then clean, swaddled in white cloth. My knot is at the center of each photo. Third girl born knotted. Doctors halt research. A third infant has been born knotted to a family in the South. This rare genetic abnormality has flummoxed the medical community. The first woman, Eleanor X., was born a knot in 1947. She gave birth to 2 sons, unknotted, and a daughter who carried the knot. Her births were not compromised by the knot. In fact, in all 3 women, the womb is located at the base of the deformity, providing a clear path for birthing. Her daughter, Deborah X., also delivered 1 daughter and 1 son. The daughter, Cassandra X, was born a knot. The son, again, was born unknotted. This very rare gene resides on the X chromosome. Doctors have determined the knots are largely a cosmetic issue, potentially rendering the women outsiders in society. The impact is largely emotional rather than physical. Doctors have decided to halt their inquiry into its cause after years of inconclusive research. I don't hear the footsteps of my mother. "You should be cleaning. What are you doing?" "Just looking at your old magazines." But she catches a glimpse. Today, she is vicious. Her brown eyes flash, then froth. Rabid. She slaps the journal to the ground. Then her palm stings across my cheek in a quick flash of red. "Some things are private!" Her body disappears into the blackness of the doorway. The attic goes silent. Face red, I look at the ground where a single photo has fallen from between the pages of the journal. It is a picture of us, together. I am swathed in more fabric than usual. My brother clenches an arm around me. My mother wears a flowered dress, her own knot hidden. My father stands off to the side, as if he has been sold a bad car. We are all squinting beneath a bright sun that is just out of frame. Weekdays, I go to school. I walk the mile. The school is green with a pitched roof. Most days, no one minds me. I stay quiet to keep it that way. I keep track of the facts, though. In my classes, I learn about the human body and history and the human brain, deep seas, jungles, islands, and the distant cities beyond our town and the distant planets beyond our world. An octopus has 3 hearts, 9 brains, and blue blood. Female lions do 90% of the hunting for their pride. The heart of the blue whale is so large that a human could swim through its arteries. 1 square centimeter of skin contains roughly 100 pain sensors. The sun will only get brighter before it collapses. While I'm in school, my father and my brother work the meat from the quarry with their hands and their shovels. That's what my brother says. On Saturdays, my mother and I clean the meat in the big silver sink. On meat cleaning days, watery pink rivers rush off the flesh. The fresh piles of meat rise like bloody castles on the counter. On Saturdays, we must act very proper, because we must take the meat into town. This is a ritual that requires preparation. I clean myself and put on my best dress. I am like the meat in this way. In the evening, we drive into town, the clean flesh piled in the truck bed. 10 gold coins! 20 gold coins! 30 gold coins! Bid the men in the town. Their stomachs and guts are large, but knotless. They avert their eyes from us, or else they stare too long and too hard at our shapes. I often imagine a man with a body like mine, a man I might marry. "Do men ever get knots?" I ask. "Lower your voice, and no, a man has never had a knot. That is a woman's burden." "Sold!" my father bellows. The men scoop the clean meat into their own buckets, red and raw, the smell of wet coin in the air. Sometimes my father brings up the old days. "My father bought this land for a song. Back then it was harder to tell which lands would have meat." "Nobody thought this land did?" I ask. "Sure didn't. Dad knew better, though. He could hardly keep the grin off of his face when they were signing the papers. He always told me his gut knew we'd hit it big." "How did he find the meat quarry?" "Well, everyone in town thought he was a fool," my father says. "In the early days, he crawled the land himself, waiting for the feeling in his gut to grow stronger, belly against the soil." I move closer to my father. His eyes are not too red yet, the scent of the liquor faint. This is the nicest time to be close. "It took him 2 weeks of that. He was on the 13th day when he started to lose faith, but he kept crawling. On the last day, it was raining and he was out there in the mud, searching." "How did he know when he'd found it?" "He said his gut lit up bright, and the hairs on the back of his neck stood up. Said he'd never felt anything like that before. Like instinct? Like instinct. Your brother has it, too. Even stronger than I do, but boy, did it save my father's ass. Everyone in this goddamn town thought he was a joke. Now, we've got the best meat on this side of the river. Later, alone, I lie on my belly in the center of my bedroom. My knot presses against the carpet. I practice my sensing, eyes closed, reaching out with my gut to see where new meat might be on our land. I wait for the hairs to stand up on the back of my neck. I sense as hard as I can. I feel nothing. At school, the other students surround me. Their round faces bobble like bad balloons, screaming, "Look at her! Look at the freak!" Their bodies are lanky, pimpled, letting off new odors. Their voices echo off the metal lockers. Their eyes are all on me, blue, brown, green, gray, each eye making my flesh shiver. Everyone an enemy. "Yeah! Look at me!" I yell back. I pull up my dress, bare my weak fangs, my knot bright in the sunlight streaming through the windows, a single eye of flesh daring them all to move, to come closer, to try me. Vision. I'm the queen now. All the students surround me with their offerings at lunch. "I've brought you an orange," says a boy with one lazy eye. "Thank you," I say. "That's very kind." "I brought you crackers with cheese in the center," says a girl in a plaid dress. "Wonderful." They come forward one by one, each with a treat. I smooth my own dress down over my flat stomach. The offerings rise up around me, growing like sweet palaces. In bed that night, I slide my hands down. I run my fingers over my knot. I try to tell myself I don't mind it so much. Under the light of the moon, I picture my teeth growing into big fangs. I widen my mouth, let them catch the breeze. I close my eyes and try to believe, half girl, half snake. The next morning, my mother sits at the kitchen table. Her yellow house dress tents over her knot, big as a cheap sun. I spoon cereal into my mouth. "Will you call the doctor?" I ask. "Will you ask him to unknot me?" "That's not how it works," my mother says, smoking. "And it's the weekend. They don't work on weekends." "Why don't you ever try?" "We've been over this. The doctors don't give a damn about it." "They screamed at me again, at school." "I used to spit at them when they spat at me," my mother says. Then she stares out the window into the long horizon as if in a deep trance, as if staring into another time, as if I were not there, never born. That afternoon, we're in the living room. We are cleaning again. "These curtains are a mess," my mother says. She lifts the fabric of the curtains like strange brocade hair. "And now what is this?" She pulls one of my father's bottles from the ground, half full of liquor. "Motherfucker," she whispers. "Motherfucker." She slams the bottle on the living room table, then sits down beside me on the couch, so close our knees bang. We face the bottle. Anger shimmers off of her in hot waves. I stay quiet. I know how this goes. "Now," she says, "we wait for this motherfucker." The sun sets, and the moon rises. We fall asleep on the couch. When the sun rises again, my father still hasn't come home. "Time to get ready for school," my mother says. She slides the bottle back behind the curtain, a strange magic trick, the evaporated day. Vision. My father has special places for the bottles, behind the toilet, in the back of the truck, beneath the pillows of the fancy sofa, beneath the chair in the living room, in the shower, in the trash can. "You're hiding them everywhere," I say. "I found one behind my bed last night." "It's not what you think. Please, don't tell your mother." he says. It is too what I think. What will she say when she finds out?
You can't tell her. You can't. I'll stop.
The world will spin on as it does until you do something to change it. I pull each bottle from its special place. I stack the glass bottles half full of clear liquid on the front lawn, in the sun. The pile is bigger than the front door, bigger than the truck. I hurl my body at the pile of glass and begin to smash the bottles one by one, shards glinting in the sun like a new future. At night, I lay my head in my mother's lap. "Oh, not me," I sob. "Please, make someone fix me."
There's nothing we can do,
she murmurs.
"Kill me then,"
I say.
"Please."
My mother exhales smoke, stubs out her cigarette, then puts her cool hand on my forehead. A rare touch. When the house is silent, I sneak into my father's office. This is my favorite place. The room bursts with him. The shelves are lined with his favorite objects. Paused lava rocks, bleached white bones, books about meat, empty bottles that catch and refract the light like diamonds. I sit at his desk in his red leather chair. I spin the chair a few times. I open his desk drawer. The silver key to the meat quarry gates glistens against the black liner. I clench my fingers around that cool metal until it aches, then slide the key back into the drawer. A map of the meat quarry lines the office wall behind me. The quarry is mapped like veins of a heart, fat arteries, thin arteries, all connected and winding. Areas with the best meat are marked with a red X. I run my fingers over the map, trace the arteries, memorizing paths until I hear the front door open. I sneak out, heart in my throat. Each day at school, I stare at bodies, memorizing their limbs, their smooth lines. The body of Sophia is my favorite. A portrait of Sophia. Long brown hair which shimmers where mine is dull. Narrow shoulders where mine are gangly. Long legs. No knot where I am knotted. In the mornings, Sophia walks slowly into the classroom as if covered in sleep. Sophia wears a red dress, then a blue dress, then a green dress. In the afternoons, Sophia laughs in the lunchroom, and light bounces off the white of her teeth. Sophia knows a joy I do not know. I watch Sophia move, and I want to move like she does. Some days Sophia catches me staring and waves. Sometimes I lift my limp hand and wave back. I don't know if my wave tells the truth, which is, I want to move like you do. I want to slice you open with a knife. I want to hide my body inside of yours. Today, my mother wants to help. She closes my bedroom door behind her, then sits beside me on the bed. The heat of her breath scorches my face. Close up, her wrinkles are deep canyons. I imagine myself walking through the chasms of her skin. "We need to do something about your looks," she says, running a hand through my hair. "Let's start with the clothes. The magazines say yellow is the color this season." She walks to my closet and pulls out an old yellow dress made of lace. I shake my head. "Put it on. It's fun to try new looks." "I hate this dress. It's too hot." "Just do it." I strip off my old blue dress. I slip the yellow fabric over my head. She yanks up the zipper and the bright lace tense around my knot. "Now these," she says, wrapping a single strand of pearls around my neck. The pearls are tight, hot, plastic. She walks me into her bedroom. We are surrounded by her special creams, the ghost of her perfume, facing her big mirror. "There now," she says. "Isn't this just perfect? Shouldn't we do this every day? Let's take a picture." In the photograph, I stand next to her mirror in the dress and the pearls. My eyes are red, as if I have been crying, as if I want to remove the pearls, the dress, my skin. Out under the burning sun, my brother digs the red meat up out of the earth, filling silver bucket after silver bucket after silver bucket. I imagine it that way. Then he is showered, clean, in fresh clothes at the dinner table. "Big day in the quarry today," he says. We fork bland cubes of meat into our mouths. "It takes a gut instinct, son," my father says, "and you have it. Boy, I wish I had it like you." The room falls silent after this rare praise. My mother exhales a plume of smoke. The meat takes on the scent. After dinner, I cut the flat-stomached women out of my mother's magazines. They wear bathing suits or dresses cut in at the hip. Slicing the pages gives me peace, silver metal humming through the paper until the women are separated from their scenes. Inside the dim light of my bedroom closet, I tape their torsos to the wall, floor to ceiling. I call them the Sophias. They are the girls a boy would like to touch. One day, Sophia speaks. She is wearing a pink dress, the light from her mouth making her hair and her eyes and her skin brighter. "Why do you always stare?" she asks. "I hate it." "I wish I looked like you," I blurt. "No, you don't," she says. "It's all the same, no matter how you look." The lie makes her a friend. I begin to bring Sophia to the acres each day after school. We spend afternoons exchanging secrets, whispering about boys. We nod into each other's hair. "Let me see your knot," she says one day. I don't fight. I stand in the center of the living room and lift my dress up, slow as an ache. In the afternoon sun, my knot looks even worse, each stretch mark illuminated. "Well," she says flatly, "that's disgusting. Pull your dress down." I sit back on the couch, dying inside, until she puts an arm around me and whispers in my ear, "I think I saw Jared staring at you today." Jared is taller than the others at school, lanky-bodied. His hair is short, uneven, cut over a kitchen sink. A dirty streak of freckles crosses his nose, cheeks. Under his skin is an anger that casts a shadow around him. "Why are you always looking at me?" he asks. I lift my eyes and stare right into his face. That's when I realize it. His left eye is lazy, the pupil unfocused, staring off into another world. His right eye pierces into me like a knife. I tell Sophia what's in my insides. "It's awful inside of me," I say. "What's in there?" she asks. "I have a pit of badness in my stomach," I say. Then we sit in the quiet of the confession. Vision. Under the fluorescent lights, I am gaping wide. My incision is wide and long from hip to hip, across my flat belly, right where a woman would grow a baby. With each breath, black blood gurgles out from the slit. My insides are no longer red. Now, my organs are black, no longer soft, now covered in dark, sparkling crystals. I can't stop looking at my terrible insides, at how wretched I have become there, how beautiful the rot is. My wound keeps glittering with each breath, a terrible evening of stars shimmering inside of me. Each week, my mother takes me to visit the bodies of my grandparents. We walk to the edge of the acres where there is a cemetery squared by a low white fence. "It keeps the wolves out," my mother says. Crooked white crosses spell out their names in script above the dates of birth and death. We place small offerings on low, grassy mounds. "They'll love this," my mother whispers. The offerings, flowers, small sugar cookies, rosaries, a small cheap statue of an angel. Against the crosses, the gifts look wrong. They will spoil in the rain, melt down to strange, warped blobs of colored sugar and plastic. "Now isn't this nice?" My mother sits between the graves and caresses the grass. "I just miss you so much," she says to the ground, her sob a fist which clenches the heart in my chest. I leave her side, wander the edge of the cemetery, My eyes land on a black shape beneath the grass, a rocky mound. I lean down. It is a tiny...
Sample complete. Ready to continue?